Hey, what's happening, everybody? My name is Charles Maring, and today I'm going to be talking about the differences and similarities between the Leica 42.5 1.2 Nocticron and the Lumix 42.5 1.7. But first, let's cut to our intro. Man, I tell you what, I am just so excited about today's modern cameras and modern technologies and just being a part of this creative industry called photography and video. Whether you are a photographer, painter, fashion designer, entrepreneur of any kind, the camera is kind of at the center of what you do. It's at the center of your marketing. It's how you spread the word about things. And so this overlap of photography and video is incredibly exciting. And all of the choices that we have at our fingertips makes it even more exciting. And some of those choices come down to lenses. Now, I happen to be a Lumix ambassador. I'm a huge fan of their camera systems. I love the Micro Four Thirds format because it's incredibly lightweight, and there's just so much tech built into these cameras for 4K video, stills, and the works. It just fits for what I do. And now it comes down to lots of lens choices in Micro Four Thirds as well. And two of my favorite lenses, for a variety of reasons, are the Leica 42.5 1.2 Nocticron. Let's get a close-up here. And also, coinciding, the Lumix 42.5 1.7. Now, these look like two completely different lenses, and in a way they are completely different. And in a way, they're quite similar. But let's share the difference between them and similarities so that you can decide which lens is right for you when you're making these choices. Now, my wife and I, I should say my wife, did an incredible photo shoot this week. If you didn't catch it on our site, it's the portrait vignette that she did. And we have behind the scenes. You can see the lighting and whatnot in her portrait vignette if you go to our YouTube channel. And I'm going to bring up some images from that shoot because we took the time to photograph the subject both with the 42.5 Leica and the 42.5 Lumix so that we could share with you the difference between the two. So let's go into that. I'm going to take you into Lightroom and just share some images. These aren't necessarily our favorite images from the shoot, but they were the side-by-side ones that we could showcase the difference between the two. So what we have here is the 42.5, you can see the metadata in the lower right, Leica 1.2 Nocticron. And what I want to share with you is that in this type of setting, you're not going to really see the difference between these two lenses dramatically. Let me bring up the next image. This is the Lumix 42.5 1.7. Let's bring them up side by side. I'll go into survey mode here. And if you look at this back wall here, the 1.2 should be a little bit softer than the 1.7. And you can see in this setting, you're not really going to see a dramatic difference between these two lenses. And when it comes to a studio environment, you're definitely not going to see the difference because generally in a studio environment, we're shooting at f4.0 all the way up to f16. I shoot a lot of stuff at f16, especially fashionable work. And so as a still photographer in the studio, these two lenses are very comparable. Sharpness-wise, they're equally as sharp as far as what I can tell. Let's go into another image and explore depth of field just a little bit more to compare the two. So jump back into Lightroom. Now, as you can see here, this is the Lumix 42.5 1.7. You see the chandelier in the foreground kind of blurred, depth of field here working to our benefit to add some beauty. You see the midground here in the lamp. You see that she's in focus. Let's look at the next image. This is the Leica 42.5 1.2 at 1.2. And let's compare them side by side as well. Same thing. You can't really, in this type of setting, tell a huge difference between the 1.2 and the 1.7 in terms of depth of field. What about clarity between these two lenses? Well, let's find out. I'm just going to deselect here and select one again and go into a full screen mode, and we will zoom in. Let me pull it down. Look at the facial here, and you can see how sharp it is. This is the 42.5 Lumix. This is the 42.5 1.2 Leica. And in terms of clarity, very, very close to the same image in terms of clarity. So when do I choose one or the other? Well, in a studio setting, I'm shooting with strobes, doesn't matter. Sharpness is going to be the same, depth of field is irrelevant. But if I am out in the field and I am doing street photography, let's say, more times than not, I run out with the 42.5 1.7. The reason being is it's just so small and compact and lightweight that I can run with just a small camera bag instead of having my full-size bag and have a bunch of different lens options with it. So I love these little lenses when I'm doing street photography or I'm just out in the real world. If I am professionally photographing or filming a wedding, let's say, and I know that there's going to be some very low light situations, I'm definitely going to grab the 42.5 1.2 Nocticron. And the reason being is it's a stop of light. A stop of light doesn't sound like a lot. And on one hand, if you think in terms of aperture, it's not. But if you think in terms of ISO, it's the difference between shooting at 6400 ISO and 12,800 ISO. It's doubling your ISO or doubling the amount of light that's allowed through the lens, and that allows me to shoot photographs that are just have less noise and more clarity to them in extreme low light situations. So if I know I'm working extreme low light, I'm going this way. If I know I want to be lightweight and mobile, definitely going this way. Both lenses have their sweet spot in what they can do. There are some major differences between these lenses too, though. Weight certainly is a factor. We talked about that. This has a different number of aperture blades than the Leica does. And so let's go into that and what difference that makes in terms of the look of bokeh in your images. So let's go back into Lightroom. And I'm just going to show you a setting here. My wife and I went into the studio this morning and I'm like, let me just do a quick test so that I can share it with everybody. So this is our studio. We have on the right here a 33-inch Mola beauty dish with a Profoto D1 in it. On the back here, just another D1. We're just going to use the modeling lamps, and this is in a center reflector, so it kind of rim lights her shoulders and hair here. And then I set the camera on this tripod and just swapped out the lenses for the shot. Let's take a look at these two shots. So it'll take it a second to catch up here, but there we are. Let me zoom out. This is, as you can see in the lower corner, the Lumix 42.5 1.7. It's incredibly sharp, looks great. You can actually see the depth of field is quite tight here. This eye is in focus. This one's a little soft. So 1.2 is kind of funny that way. Or 1.7, I should say, that shallow depth of field. Look at the bokeh here, very rounded but very sharp. And these are Christmas lights, as you could see. And so they are not rounded in shape, so they're going to vary just a little bit. Let's look at the difference between this and the Leica. So the Leica gives a totally different effect in terms of the bokeh. It increases the size of it. It gives a little softer bokeh effect to things, a little more roll off. In terms of sharpness at 1.2, same thing. We're looking at this eye is just a tiny bit softer than this one, and that's just the way it's going to be when we're working with lights like this. So if we compare the two side by side one more time, you'll see this is a little softer out of the Leica. This is a little bit harsher with less roll off on the Lumix. So if you're a filmmaker, we all love that really soft, buttery bokeh to our lenses, and we go for that. And so that's the reason that filmmakers tend to want to go with the 1.2 Leica over the Lumix 1.7. Is the difference out of this world enormous? No, but there is a difference. Let's talk about some other things. Now, both of these lenses both have power OIS, so they're both optically stabilized lenses. And I found both of them equally easy to focus. I did a quick test just to show you. we'll jump into Lightroom one more time, and I'm just going to focus off the back wall, handheld, just kind of showing how easy it is to do, to go into full screen. And had no problem focusing either. This is the Lumix version. Let's go into the Leica version, same thing. Very easy to focus both. So when it comes to focus pools, I find them pretty much equivalent to one another. I don't have a problem with a focus pull on either, even though that's just kind of a run and gun focus pull. Both seem to be very smooth and work very well. So these two lenses are incredible choices regardless of what you're shooting. Again, if you need light, this is the way to go. If you want to be mobile, this is the way to go. Let's dive into some price points though, because that is the determining factor on a lot of things for us here. I opened up B&H here, and we'll kind of go into it and just share the difference because it is dramatic. Let's see. So, jumping in, we're on the B&H site here. Look at this. The Panasonic Lumix 42.5 1.7 Power OIS lens, 347. I'll mention one more thing. Let's go down to the specs and look at how light this lens is. Weight is 4.59 ounces. Let's compare it to the 42.5. This is 347, 42.5 is 1397. So dramatic difference between these two. And if we go down to specs one more time and we look at weight, 14.99, so almost 15 ounces. So that's a dramatic difference in the weight of these two lenses and what you have to carry around when you're out on the move. I hope for some of you this helped clarify the difference between these two lenses. I love them both equally, that I will say. Both of them are incredibly sharp, and I choose them wisely based on what I'm out shooting out in the real world. That's a wrap today on the 42.5 choices from Lumix and Leica in the Micro Four Thirds format. If you have any questions about the test we did here or some of the things that we've done, reach out and ask. Happy to help. I'm also starting to test the difference between the Lumix and Leica 25mm lenses as well. I'll be bringing that to you at some point in the near future. Appreciate you guys. Have a great one. Take care, everybody.